I stepped into my office after lunch, coffee still warm in my hand, and found two compliance officers digging through my desk like scavengers on a carcass. Standard audit. One grunted, not meeting my gaze, but their focus was too sharp, too deliberate. My eyes flicked to the blue folder on my desk's edge, slightly askew. They'd already touched it. I leaned against the wall, tugging my tie loose, voice steady. Found anything worth sharing? Their movements stilled. One officer, crouched by the bottom drawer, the one I'd locked daily for years, pulled out a plain, heavy envelope. Their faces drained of color. 2 years earlier, I'd have scoffed at the idea of turning the tables on my ex-wife, Claire. We'd built this company from sleepless nights and shared dreams, her brilliance matching mine. But when our marriage ended, so did the partnership. The divorce was just the opening act. The real fight came after. Clients she poached, rumors she spread, her new husband, Marcus, our former legal advisor, flaunted like a prize. I gave her the penthouse, let her erase my name from the firm's branding, let her think I'd crumbled. But that was the bait. The real plan was letting her believe she'd outsmarted me. It began with a tip from a compliance friend. "They're sniffing around the Orion accounts," he said. The Orion accounts, our old decoy. A system Claire and I designed to trap leaks. Never real, never active. But the mention of it told me this wasn't just betrayal, it was a calculated strike. I hung up, walked the city's rain-soaked streets, and started building. First, I revived the Orion accounts, but only in the shadows. Metadata trails, faint digital footprints to tempt the curious. I fed a rumor to Marcus's former assistant, hinting at shady offshore deals, playing careless enough to leave a trail. Next, I dusted off the real evidence. Records of Marcus siphoning client funds before our split. Back then, Claire pleaded for his sake, swore it was a one-time error, promised to fix it. I let it go. But I kept the proof, letting it mature like a fine scotch, locked in the firm's encrypted vault under Claire's old password. A poetic touch. Today was the endgame. They came during lunch, banking on my absence. Claire's secretary likely tipped them off. She always knew my routine. I left the drawer unlocked, let them walk into the trap. The officers turned to me, the envelope heavy in their hands, suspicion clouding their eyes. "This wasn't here this morning," I said, feigning surprise. "That drawer's always locked." The older officer shifted uncomfortably. "It was open when we arrived." I raised an eyebrow. Curious. 15 minutes later, I called a meeting. The conference room's glass walls framed a tense crowd. Partners, staff, HR. The officers laid out their tip as I watched Claire fidget, Marcus smirking until I produced a second envelope, addressed to the board. "Time for the truth," I said, spreading out the evidence. Forged transactions, doctored invoices, all tied to Marcus, with Claire's cover-up woven through. The room went silent. Marcus sputtered, "This is fabricated." I shook my head. "It's airtight. Every log, every timestamp, traceable. Claire, you designed the Orion system. You know it's flawless." She stared motionless, as if the past 2 years had crashed down on her. I slid a signed confession across the table. Marcus's, inked during a merger deal, disguised as a routine form. A partner swore softly. Claire's voice broke the silence, barely a whisper. "You set us up." I leaned closer. "No, you set yourselves up. I just held the mirror." Compliance suspended them immediately. An investigation was inevitable, but the fallout was already in motion. Clients bailed, the firm's stock wavered. I'd prepared for this. Months ago, I'd launched a new venture, quietly poached loyal clients, hired sharp talent under confidentiality agreements. By the time the chaos spread, I was already in my new office, larger, cleaner, free of shadows. Revenge isn't loud. It's not speeches or storms. It's patient, precise, a blade slipped through the cracks of trust. I don't regret the trap, the collapse, or the silence that followed. Claire taught me strategy. Marcus taught me deceit. I returned the lesson, compounded with time. They'll call it a scandal. I call it justice. And as I sit here, watching the city hum below, I think of their faces when they opened that drawer. The flicker of dread, the quiet before the end. Revenge, like a routine audit, hits hardest when it's expected but never anticipated.